Fullbring Ichigo is underrated. You know, I've been a passive part of the Bleach community for a long time, so I have a clear idea of what times were like when Kubo was writing the Fullbring arc. And as nostalgic as those days are, I have no interest in going back to those times, because the level of ignorance permeating through the anime sphere at that time baffles me to this day. If you're a regular on the channel, I've been taking you on a journey through Ichigo Kurosaki's character in Bleach, and now, it's time to cast our eyes to the most controversial arc in Bleach, the Fullbring arc. This arc, by definition, garners massive polarizing opinions from most of the Bleach and anime community, with some enjoying it and others hating it. And look, everybody has their reasons, everyone has their bone to pick, but for me, Fullbring Ichigo is by a long stretch the most underrated version of Ichigo, and I'm going to tell you why in this video. You know how when you're trying to learn another language, you are first taught the letters of that language's alphabet, and then the manner in which words can be formed from letters into sentences and into complex meanings? In those situations, the goal is not to teach you every sentence in existence. That would be a fool's errand. Instead, you are taught the fundamental principles. You need to know letters, and you need to know the meanings of words and how they relate to each other. But after you know the fundamental principles, you are then able to create any sequence of words to express any emotion and thought you want through a myriad of sentence structures. That's what I've tried to do in this series. As I break Ichigo down, I also try to convey the principle behind Ichigo's arc at that stage. I like to refer to these fundamentals as it pertains to Ichigo as Kubology. And if you go back through most of my videos, you will see me name drop Kubology all over the place, and it always pertains to an important fundamental principle. But the fundamental principle I want you to focus on for this analysis is the cycle of deconstruction and reconstruction. Death and rebirth, if you will. Kubo and other authors, for that matter, will isolate a weakness within their main character. They will then expose it, magnify it, and have their main character face it head on. After a struggle with this weakness, they will overcome it and move on to greater heights than they were before, only to meet yet another weakness to be isolated. The cycle repeats over and over, like a trial of fire, until the character, perfected by the fires of failure, achieves the level intended from the very beginning. The Fullbring arc acts as a trial of fire for Ichigo Kurosaki. And before we dive into the arc's content, it is important for you to recognize exactly what weaknesses of Ichigo is being magnified and what comes as a result of it. When we first met Ichigo in the first arc of Bleach, he hated the fact that he could see ghosts and wished he could be normal. At the very least, if he couldn't be normal, he had no interest in using his abilities to help people he did not know. This isn't something I made up. It is in the canon, and Ichigo alludes to this on multiple occasions. Kubo then takes you through Ichigo's journey up until the battle with Aizen. Now, he's at an impasse. In order to defeat Aizen, he has to give up his Soul Reaper abilities. Kubo does not spend a lot of time showing us if Ichigo has mental struggle with this decision, but we do know his reaction to it: sadness, apathy, and torture, as I explained in the last chapter of this Ichigo series. But now, going into the Fullbring arc, whether he wanted to or not, whether he was prepared to or not, or whether he was willing to or not, he is about to live a life without powers. Kubo is ready to deconstruct Ichigo's belief about power and protection, and that is the primary purpose of the Fullbring arc. So as we go into this, keep these ABCs in mind and walk with me on this journey. A journey where Kubo finally puts Ichigo's opinion about power and protection to the test. So, we pick up the story 1.5 years after the defeat of Aizen, and Ichigo is now devoid of any spiritual powers. He's been focusing on school, reconnecting with his family and friends, and working a part-time job with the beautiful, illustrious, jaw-dropping Miss Ikumi. Hashtag Ikumi Top 5. He's happy enough saving for college and deciding on his future when mysterious things start happening around him. The mysteries compound when he is approached by a strange man by the name of Ginjo Kugo. Now, the Fullbring arc is a deep character study / character deconstruction for Ichigo, but it also hinges deeply on the relationship between Ichigo Kurosaki and Ginjo Kugo. In fact, I think I can very confidently say that if you do not find their dynamic as interesting to watch, you're not going to enjoy the arc because there's a lot of that in here. Ginjo is one of my favorite antagonists in Bleach and a guilty pleasure of mine because in reality, I shouldn't like his character that much, but I do. I think he's great, but I'll save that Ginjo fanboying for another day. we're focusing on Ichigo for now. In keeping with this first phase where we're trying to understand Ichigo's psychological state now that he's devoid of abilities, Kubo neatly places a scene where Ichigo and Keigo are talking to each other. Keigo and Ichigo are speaking about their futures, colleges, jobs, and the like. He brings up Rukia and how she and the other Soul Reapers basically don't show up in Karakura anymore. They've literally ghosted Karakura town. Pun intended. What happens here is one of the few moments where Kubo literally feeds you what he wants you to know. Kubo doesn't typically do this, but every now and then he's like, here, take it.
Take it, Carter. Take all the nog. Yeah, you like that nog.
Ichigo says, I never felt superior for being able to see ghosts. I never thought I could make a living or save somebody's life with it. All it made me do was crave a life where I didn't have to see them. And now, I've got what I always wanted. See, this is very important for understanding the purpose of the Fullbring arc. I'm going to use what is probably a bad example, but just humor me. My analogies are hit or miss these days, but I think this will sell the idea. So there's a couple, a boy and a girl, and they're like chilling or whatever. The girlfriend is super clingy and wants to hang out all the time, every day, all day, plus whatever is left of that. The guy loves her, but he kind of wants to have his own space because he wants to grab drinks with his friends or play some video games or just be lazy. It doesn't matter. Point is, she always wants to be with him and he's starting to wish that he had more time for himself to do all his personal wants and desires. So he doesn't break up with her or anything, he stays in the relationship, but deep down, he wishes she could just leave him be so he can have some personal time for himself. And as time passes, this emotion becomes stronger. Well, the two of them get into an argument and he very angrily expresses his feelings concerning wants and personal time. He wants to have his alone time to watch his anime, sports, games, and everything in between. The two of them break it off and yay, he finally has all the time in the world. He hits the gym, he plays video games, he hangs out with his friends, and he feels happy. He finally got what he wanted. But then, he still feels like something is missing. He still yearns for the relationship he had with his partner and wonders why he feels this way. He felt so strongly about a world where he could only work on himself and do anything he wanted with no restrictions. He craved that life, but now that he's got it, he feels incomplete. That is where Ichigo is right now. You see, the small little anecdote I gave is more complex than a one-to-one comparison with Ichigo. This boyfriend should have come to terms with his desire to have personal time and also romantic time with his significant other, and both should have worked towards finding a balance between the two. But it wasn't until he experienced the life on the other side that he was fully educated on exactly what awaits him on that end. The experience he just went through did more to ground his perspective than fancy lip service from anyone around him. That is where Ichigo is. All along, it's always been save this person, save that person. Ruki's abducted, or Hime is abducted. Aizen's gonna kill us all. Give up your powers and save us. Your hollow is threatening to take over your mind and destroy everything. There's always been something and Ichigo just wanted to be done with all of it. He wanted a normal life. But now, he's got it. He's got that normal life and he's had it for a year and a half. But he's not happy. That is where Kubo is going with this, and he starts to slowly position Ichigo in a position of powerlessness, so Ichigo feels out of control. Uriya gets attacked by an unknown assailant and Ichigo is the last to hear about it. He tries to walk Orihime home, but Ryukin keeps her and Ichigo is not dumb. He knows exactly what Ryukin is trying to do here. He's trying to keep Ichigo out of the loop because he's powerless. Genjo Kugo approaches Ichigo and starts casting doubts about Ishin's true nature and Kisuke's eventual betrayal. Tsukishima begins to immerse himself in Ichigo's life and starts to turn everything upside down. All the while, Ichigo can only watch as everyone around him tries to protect him instead of the other way around. Is it fun to see Ichigo like this? No. But Kubo wants to have Ichigo go through the necessary arc to understand what he truly wants out of power and protection. Ichigo will come full circle, but he goes through multiple stages before he arrives at that end. The first of which is simply put, I want to fight again. I want my powers back. This concession leads Ichigo into 3 stages of training developed by Ginjo and the others to give Ichigo his powers back. I want to speak on each stage as they happen and comment on a couple of things for each. Stage 1. Dollhouse. For the first stage, Ichigo is placed into Ryuka's dollhouse and tasked with fighting this deranged teddy bear or whatever. His life is placed into mortal danger, and the purpose of this training is to find out what Ichigo's Fullbring conduit is. As Kubo explains, Fullbringers have the ability to draw out the souls of inanimate objects and use them to fight. Okay, I don't know what to say about this, but all I'll say is, cool. But I'm not a fan of this idea known as everything has a soul. If everything has a soul, then do inanimate objects have a soul society? Not sure. And if everything has a soul, how can manipulation on a soul level affect physical items? What I mean is, Ginjo apparently draws out the soul of the alcoholic beverage in front of him, and somehow, drawing out the soul draws out the drink itself. Like, if we drew out the soul of a human, the body would fall. But when we draw out the soul of a drink, the physical drink... Look, I don't know, bro. I have no idea. I'm just gonna have to fly to Japan, knock on Kubo's door, and ask him myself, because this specific concept is weird. And what does it have to do with being attacked by a hollow? Okay, Rebirth, stop. Anyway, coming back to my point. Ichigo needs a Fullbring conduit. Ginjo has his necklace, Chad has his skin, and the Fullbringers have their own. For Ichigo, he uses the combat pass. According to Ginjo, the soul of a combat pass retained spiritual memories of Ichigo's battles and stored them within it. Now, he's able to use it. How is Ichigo able to achieve this first stage of Fullbring? Well, the trigger for each Fullbringer is different, but luckily for Ichigo and Chad, it's the same. Pride. Pride in who he was as a Soul Reaper, and that emotional resonance of pride triggered his Fullbring into activation. He then fires a Mach Getsuga Tensho at his opponent to win. Cool? Cool. Stage 2. Dirty Boots. Ichigo's second training involved battling Jackie Tristan and her Fullbring called Dirty Boots. This was a one-on-one battle between he and Jackie, and Ichigo showcased the experience he had gained over the years, luring Jackie into a false sense of control and striking her when her guard was at her lowest. He also begins to subconsciously use Bringer Light. But the key thing to know for their battle is that his Fullbring, which by this time was still maintained in the combat pass, begins to pour out and clad his body in dark Ryotsu resembling a Shihakusho. Ichigo loses control, and when Tsukishima breaks apart the training ground they are in, Ichigo appears before him, clad in black, with some kind of reishi blade. The first training established Pride as the trigger, and his combat pass as the conduit. The second training established that Ichigo's Fullbring would most likely be armored. In other words, Ichigo would wear his Fullbring. When he encounters Tsukishima, they battle outside, and even though Tsukishima is clearly more powerful right now, Ichigo is showcasing tremendous progress. He gains more control over Bringer Light and shocks Tsukishima with how much power he's able to output. Yukio eventually steps in and prevents the battle from spilling any further, but Ichigo has now gained even more power as he attempts to regain his Soul Reaper abilities. Stage 3. Ginjo Kugo. Stage 3 of Ichigo's training is a battle with Ginjo Kugo himself. Utilizing Yukio's Invader's Must Die ability, Ichigo and Ginjo battle in a mock video game fight sequence. While they're fighting, Chad gets Orihime to come help Ichigo, and she arrives to see Ichigo bleeding from his chest after Ginjo struck him. She heals him and the battle continues, but Ichigo is starting to notice something different about Ginjo. Kubo takes us into the mind of Ichigo, and we come to understand what is bothering him. Ichigo has always had an ability to sense what is in the hearts of the opponents he fights. But here, fighting Ginjo, he cannot tell what Ginjo is thinking or feeling. As Ichigo puts it, there's a lid on his true emotion. Ginjo notices that Ichigo isn't focusing and slashes him right across the eyes. I kid you not, the man literally slashes Ichigo's eyes out. He then begins to antagonize Ichigo. He kicks him from different angles, drags him around, insults him, berates him, and really sinks into playing the role of a villain. There's one line I absolutely adore from Ginjo where he says, "Don't worry, Ichigo, I'll drag you back to the battlefield." Ginjo continues to antagonize Ichigo and threatens to kill Chad and Orihime. As you'd expect, this garners a strong reaction from Ichigo, but ultimately, without sight or his powers, he cannot hope to do much damage. After being stabbed through the stomach by Ginjo, Ginjo turns to walk away, and Ichigo finally catches a glimpse of his spiritual pressure. He lunges at Ginjo with full force as his Fullbring transforms yet again when Ginjo takes hold of Ichigo and suppresses the explosion caused by his Fullbring. As Ginjo explains, whenever a Fullbringer's abilities are completed, someone has to be around in order to contain the resulting explosion, and he needed to make sure that Ichigo attained Fullbring in his presence. With that, Ichigo's Fullbring is fully complete, and in a later scene, we get to see his true Fullbring, and all of its Power Rangery luster. I suppose it's important to explain this while we're here. When Ichigo sacrificed his Soul Reaper abilities, it didn't rob him of literally every last bit of his spirit energy. A little bit always remained. This is actually consistent with Bleach so far. When Byakuya shattered Ichigo's Soul Chain in Soul Sleep, Old Man Zangetsu mentions that his true Soul Reaper abilities hid themselves deep inside Ichigo, so Byakuya could not reach them. Yet again, that principle rings true. The last remaining vestiges of Ichigo's power gathered inside him and became dormant. By stimulating and awakening the spiritual pressure within him, and then using that energy with his combat pass, Ichigo is able to achieve Fullbring. Now that he's opened the Fullbring door, his Soul Reaper powers will merge and naturally mix with his Fullbring, and he will ultimately gain a power greater than a normal Soul Reaper. So these are the 3 stages Ichigo took to reattain his power. He goes home, and this is where the mind-bending mockery begins. As Ichigo has been training to regain his powers, Tsukishima has been going around Ichigo's friends and family and using his Book of the End ability to insert himself into their past, making him appear to be an ally and not an enemy. Ichigo lashes out at the sight of Tsukishima, but the horrors only compound from there. Everyone Ichigo knows, from Misukumi, his sisters, his friends, Chad, and Orihime, have been overtaken by Tsukishima's ability and stand with him. Ginjo is seemingly the only one who remains unaffected. He and Ichigo are invited to Tsukishima's home, and right now, due to the impact Tsukishima has had on his friends and family, Ichigo is determined to kill Tsukishima. A battle breaks out at Tsukishima's base, and Ichigo unleashes his full power against him. Ichigo now is seemingly faster than Tsukishima and is able to gain the upper hand over him, at least until Chad and Orihime come to his rescue. As you can probably imagine, this entire endeavor is tearing Ichigo apart. He feels like he did not go through all of this trouble to turn a blade on a friend. As his emotions wane, Tsukishima attacks Ichigo, but Ginjo takes the hit, and it is at this point that things begin to take a turn for the worse. Uryu arrives on the battlefield, takes aim at Ichigo, and reveals that the one who cut him is in fact not Tsukishima, but actually Ginjo Kugo. At that point, the gig is up. Ginjo parries Uryu's arrow and cuts down Ichigo. He laughs in Ichigo's face and stabs him through the chest, beginning the transfer of power from Ichigo to Ginjo. The Fullbring powers he had just attained begins to fade away, and Ichigo loses his powers yet again. Okay, so in keeping with the fundamentals we spoke about, deconstruct to construct, to deconstruct only to construct again, or to put differently, tear them down to build them up stronger, to tear them down again, to build them up even stronger, Ichigo at the start of the arc is happy and fulfilled, at least to him. Kubo tears him down by making him feel powerless and unable to protect anyone, not even himself. Deconstruction. Then, Kubo allows Ichigo to train with the Fullbringers and attain Fullbring. Construction. After that, Kubo tears Ichigo down again by subjecting him to the fear of losing his loved ones to the enemy. Kubo tears him down even more by having Ginjo steal his powers. That is where we are now. Kubo, as it pertains to the subject of power and protection, has robbed Ichigo of those he wishes to protect, and also robbed Ichigo of the power he once used to protect. By all accounts, Ichigo, as he exists as a person, is left with nothing. In classic Kubo style, the rain starts to pour, and in that moment, when the realization finally hits Ichigo, he cannot contain himself and the sorrow overtakes him. He weeps right before Ginjo and Tsukishima, who have been working together all along. And at this point, I gotta stop everything and talk about this. I feel that there is a strong bias when it comes to Ichigo's tears in this scene. I can only speak from my perspective, so I know this to be true for me, but I cannot say that it is true for others, and I get that. I remember when this scene, whether it be manga or anime, first made it out into the public. A ton of reviewers felt almost annoyed that Ichigo cried during the scene. It is one of the most hypocritical conclusions I have ever encountered in anime. At the time, Bleach's main comparisons came from One Piece and Naruto, the big three. And some of the accusations they threw at Ichigo was this so-called mood swings. If you've been following the series, you know exactly what I think about that rhetoric, so I'm not going to speak on it right now. I find it very funny, but when you isolate these three characters, Luffy, Naruto, and Ichigo, you will find that Oda and Kishimoto have no qualms making their main characters cry for comic relief, especially Oda. Kishimoto did so sparingly and Kubo did not do it at all. There are so many instances in One Piece where Luffy burst into tears with snot running down his nose while making an incredibly ridiculous face. It happens a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Luffy cries a lot, some for comic relief and some for sorrow. And then you have Kubo, who will not make Ichigo cry unless there is a definite reason to do so. Eliminate Kid Ichigo, who used to cry a lot. That's done. Ichigo has never shed a tear that a real human would not shed were they to be in his shoes. Ichigo has never cried at a moment that a regular human being would not cry. But somehow, through some strange concoction, people at the time and to this day feel that Ichigo's tears are wrong and indicative of weakness. This rhetoric is where Deconstruction goes to die. This train of thought angers me to no end because you are robbing the writers of giving these characters a sense of realism and compassion. He began this journey with amazing abilities given to him by right of birth. He yearned to be normal. He yearned to live a life free from this responsibility he did not choose. He did not want to become a soul reaper. He needed to in order to save his family. He did not want to become a soul reaper in charge of Karakura, but needed to and so did. He did not want to sacrifice his powers to defeat Aizen, but he did because he needed to. And then, living the life he dreamed of, he finally realizes that this life is unfulfilling and the abilities he once saw as a burden was never a burden. He desperately reaches for a glimmer of hope that he can reattain his powers. He goes through the 3 stages of training. He does the work and regains his power, only to arrive at this moment, with the man who gave him his powers back laughing in his face with his sword in hand and his power stolen. Now, whether you were born with that power or given that power, whether you wanted to save others or wanted to live a normal life, it doesn't matter. He had lost it all. He had lost the right to choose, and in that moment, he broke down. I empathize with Ichigo. I empathize with Ichigo because I know what it's like to lose. We all do. I know what it's like to give something your all and have it not come to fruition. It stings, it sucks, and it hurts. And sometimes, the expectation of being strong does not mean devoid of tears. It's the action that follows that matters. And the anime gave a fantastic representation of this. A chained Ichigo is tossed into his inner world, filled to the brim with water. He lands at the bottom, unwilling and unable to fight back. But he resists the desire to give up and stumbles to his feet as the chains begin to break away. He defiantly demands Ginjo to return his powers. Ginjo is in the process of refusing when Ichigo is stabbed from behind by a reishi blade. He turns around thinking his father and Urahara to be subject to Tsukishima's ability, when he notices the one holding the blade is Rukia. An explosion erupts and a rejuvenated Ichigo steps out with new Soul Reaper abilities. In what was probably Ichigo's lowest moment, I think it is fitting that Rukia Kuchiki, the one to whom he owes his powers to, be the one to return that power back to him. Rukia gives Ichigo words of encouragement, and the arrival of Renji, Byakuya, Toshiro, Ikaku, and Kenpachi compound his rejuvenation. With steeled resolve, he stands ready to battle Ginjo Kugo. He unleashes a Getsuka Tensho and splits open the sky. Toshiro tells Ichigo that Old Man Yamamoto was one of the ones leading the charge to grant Ichigo his powers back, that he ordered every acting, vice captain, and captain to put their spirit energy into the reishi blade Kisuke was creating so he could regain his powers. Ginjo reappears in a new form, ready to fight Ichigo, and this is when Toshiro informs Ichigo about the use of the combat pass. Just as Jushiro stated when he first handed him the combat pass, if a Soul Reaper is deemed to be useful to Soul Society, he is given the combat pass as a way to inform others of their authority. It also acts as a way for substitute Shinigami to transform into a Soul Reaper at will. This law in question was created for Ginjo Kugo, a man who was known to be the very first substitute Shinigami. Yukiya breaks everyone into fighting dimensions of their own, and Ichigo, along with Uryu, faces off against Ginjo. Ginjo tries to get into Ichigo's head on 2 different occasions, and he fails to do so twice. First, when Tsukishima is killed by Byakuya, he tells Ichigo that Tsukishima is about to die, and that all traces of Fullbringer abilities disappear upon their death, which means that the trauma Tsukishima caused to Ichigo's friends and family will be removed in just a few moments. He tells Ichigo this in the hopes that Ichigo's frame will be stunted to either give him an opening to strike or to convince Ichigo not to fight him at all. Ichigo cleverly says nothing, and Ichigo tries another method. He tells Ichigo of the enemy he should truly be fighting, and this is an extremely important point I need you all to understand. I will do my best to explain this properly, but I ask that you open yourself up to understanding a perspective that might be different from what you'd expect. According to Ginjo, Jushiro told Ichigo about the combat pass, which exists when Soul Society finds a Soul Reaper they deem as useful. The tricky aspect to this, however, is that Jushiro and no one else in Soul Society told Ichigo what happens if a substitute Shinigami is found not useful. If a substitute Soul Reaper shows up and is willing to comply with Soul Society's parameters, cool, you get the combat pass, everything's peachy. But if you do not comply, they will not allow a Shinigami to just exist in the human world unattended. They are dealt with permanently. The true function of the combat pass is monitoring and control. By having it on you or near you, Soul Society can keep tabs not only on your location, but on your Reiatsu. Ginjo explains that Ichigo's spirit energy usually spirals out of control whenever he's engaged in battle outside the human world, but whenever he's in the human world, his energy never spirals out. That's because of the combat pass. At some points during his Fullbring training, Ichigo could hear the voices of Soul Reapers from the combat pass, and that is because at the time, they were discussing if they should spy on Ichigo, something Rukia vehemently fought against. Toshiro explains that after Ginjo defected and was lost to time, the higher-ups in Soul Society always planned to use the next Soul Reaper that popped up as a way to smoke out Ginjo and kill them both. When Rukia woke up after being knocked out, she wondered why Captain-level Shinigami refused to destroy the dimension Ichigo and Ginjo were trapped in, and Byakuya explains that they merely came here to confirm what Ichigo's answer would be. So that right there is the facts of the situation. When you put all these facts together, this is the reality you get. Most of the people Ichigo refers to as friends knew about the combat pass's true function. Maybe not as detailed as other people, but they knew enough to know that Jushiro did not tell Ichigo the entire story, and they chose to keep quiet about it. There isn't much reason to believe that Ginjo was an inherently bad substitute Soul Reaper. I believe that while Kubo doesn't explicitly say what happens, Ginjo must have found out about the true function of the badge, and after learning of it, he felt used, betrayed, and lied to. That is what triggered his rebellion, Soul Society's dishonesty. Furthermore, Soul Society knew Ginjo would approach Ichigo, and when they learned about it, they decided to send 5 Captain Class Shinigami in Byakuya, Renji, Kenpachi, Toshiro, and Ikkaku. Why did they send these captains? You could say that they knew a battle with the Fullbringers might break out, and look, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. After all, they had no idea where Ginjo was. There's no reason to believe they knew about the Fullbringer group, but nonetheless, even if they predicted that a battle would ensue, I'm pretty confident that Kenpachi and Byakuya along with Rukia would have been enough. Kenpachi one-shotted one Fullbringer in mere seconds. If you want to throw Renji in there for Ichigo's sake, sure. My point here is, on the basis of there's an enemy that needs eliminating, they sent way more firepower than necessary. The Fullbringers aren't the Espada, and each of these characters had increased in strength since the Aizen War. The real reason Soul Society decided to go above and beyond for this is because they knew that Ichigo was going to have to make a choice. He would either have to stand with Ginjo or stand with the Soul Society. If Ichigo chose to stand with Soul Society, great. Defeat the enemy and come back to base. But what happens if Ichigo maybe decided that he felt betrayed and wanted to side with Ginjo? Now you have Ichigo, the hero of the war, pointing his blade at Soul Society. That is the real reason this level of firepower was sent to battle with the Fullbringers. If Ichigo had sided with Ginjo, they had 5 Captain Class Shinigami on site to, if not kill him, at least reprimand him. They also had his close friends Renji and Rukia on site to help if the need arose. The reason I'm telling you this is because this entire situation is heavily layered with a lot riding on the decision Ichigo makes. And after activating Bankai, Ichigo denounces Ginjo and stands against him. Ichigo knew about how odd the situation was, but instead interpreted the situation to be, Jushiro could have deceived me if he wanted to, but he left things open so I could make my decision. This brings us to the culminating moment of Ichigo's reconstruction. Over the months I've been making deep Bleach breakdowns, I've gone through many different ideas of what Ichigo's goal and motivation is. I've tried to really dig deeper than anyone has, and I made a video on it. Some of you may have seen it. I think back to that video, and even though the idea of the video is accurate, I don't actually believe it anymore. I made the argument that Ichigo seeks balance. Balance within himself and balance in the world around him. And he does. That's what makes Ichigo compelling to me. It's not one thing. He wants to have balance in his inner world. That is 100% true. He also fights to attain balance in the world around him. 100% true. He wants to overcome the trauma of losing his mother to the Hollows by living a life she'll be proud of. Yes, that is also true. He wants to protect his friends. That again is also true. All of it is true. All of it is Ichigo's motivation and goal. He chose the path of the protector. Not merely the protection of his friends like people always demean it to, because that undercuts the meaning of Ichigo's sacrifice. Ichigo chose the path of protecting others. It doesn't matter who you are. If you need protection, Ichigo will give it to you. Embedded within this simple notion of protection lies all the complex origins of his motives. Within this will to protect others, you find Ichigo's desire for balance. Within his motivation to protect others, you find Ichigo's desire to live a life his mother can be proud of. Within his motivation to protect others, you find Ichigo's desire to protect his friends and family. All of it, that's Ichigo's goal. And now, in the Fullbring arc, he finally understands it clearly and definitively. Ichigo is Peter Parker. Ichigo is Spider-Man. He looks out for the little guys. The young, scared, wayward soul that is frightened of going to hell and being consumed by hollows. Ichigo fights for you. He'll find you. He'll put flowers in your grave. He'll come talk to you many days in a row before even thinking about performing a console. He'll tell you that you don't have to be afraid, and he'll send you off to the afterlife with a gentle smile on his face. He's your friendly neighborhood sweeper. He might go off to fight terrible beings who are thousands of years old, but he'll always come back and look out for the little guy. He'll always come back and just exist as a silent, watchful protector of those who cannot protect themselves. When Kubo writes, "We fear that which we cannot see," that refers to the fear humanity feels because they cannot see the horrors of the spiritual realm. Ichigo stands between they and the fear that reaches for them. Ichigo stands as a defender for the undefended. He stands as a watcher for the unwatched. He stands as a protector for the unprotected. And now, after experiencing what a life without power looks like, after being taught differing values like logic and instinct, after being burdened with the responsibility of protecting the entire world as we know it, Ichigo stands ready, with a clear conscience of what he wants in life and what he wants out of himself. He now knows that it's not only about using logic and reason to live. It's not about only living based on instinct and chasing battle in order to increase power. It's not about wishing you didn't have power so you could have a normal life. It's not about being sad that you're being forced to protect the world when you shouldn't be near the battle. Each and every one of these experiences he's had adds to the conclusion he's come to. A statement that says, "I want power. I want to be strong. Strong enough to protect everyone. Strong enough to defend anyone. And if I have to sacrifice myself to save others, I will do so with a smile on my face. I do not see my powers as a burden. And I do not see people asking me to save the world as a cruel fate. I do so because this is a responsibility I have chosen for myself. And I do so in order to make my mother proud." This is Ichigo Kurosaki, a man who changed Soul Society for the better. A man who sent ripples through an entire society that once upon a time wanted to murder a woman for giving her powers to a human. That very same society now breaks its own rules to not only rely on a human, they gave him his powers back. You want to talk about impact? There is your impact. And as for Ginjo, Ichigo does not hate him. He looks at him with understanding eyes. He looks at him as someone who also needs to be saved. And he strikes him down with love and care. And Ginjo, looking into Ichigo's eyes, knows that Ichigo does not hate him. He knows that Ichigo is trying to understand him. As he takes his final breath, he looks up at Ichigo and asks, "Say, Ichigo, if our order had been opposite, would our positions be reversed too? Would you have ended up like me, and I like you?" The beauty of this moment is that Ginjo is actually asking for help. If Ichigo had come before, and just like right now, if Ichigo had understood Soul Society and refused to rebel against them, would his perspective have been different? Would he have worked with the Soul Society? Would he have befriended Ichigo as a true companion? Tsukishima tries to kill Ichigo and Riruka saves him. Ichigo heads to Soul Society and asks for Ginjo's dead body. Why? Because Ichigo wanted to bury him in the world of the living. That is the least he could do for his predecessor. The Fullbring arc takes Ichigo on a journey straight into the jaws of hell. See what I did there? Jaws of hell. Kubo breaks down the essence of his main character and beats him down until there's nothing left. And then from the ashes, from the remnants, from the bare bones of what once was, Kubo builds him up, brick by brick, step by step, until Ichigo attains not just power, but motivation, conviction, perspective, and maybe most of all, understanding. The spark that lit a fire over the entire Soul Society was almost burnt out and left to wither, but with the help of those around him, Ichigo now stands before the world, comfortable in his desire to be a protector of the innocent. And who knows, maybe if you have a tiny bit of spirit energy, you might catch a glimpse of the hero who once saved the world, jumping atop the rooftops of Karakura, battling monsters you cannot see in defense of the innocent, the unprotected, and the undefended. He needs no money, he needs no reprieve. It does not matter who you are, and it does not matter whether he knows you or not. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight.
Nani?
Nani? Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Please do, alright? I am putting in the work and I know you guys are enjoying this, and if you think this is good, if you think you like where this is going, if you like the content on the channel, please hit that subscribe button and let's grow this channel. I'm trying to get up in there, alright? I'm trying to build this community because I know we can be big. I know that we have potential, and I know that you do too. So I'll catch you guys in the next Rebirth video. We're going to move on into the 1,000-year Blood War, where we're going to witness great things from Ichigo Kurosaki. This is your boy Rebirth, road to 15K, let's get it.